Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca Legon and I'm an amputee lioness and body positive advocate. I am delighted to invite you to the 4th season of the Beyond Disability podcast. In this season, you will be hearing some incredible conversations from our Dorset Orthopaedic patients who have risen to the challenge of adapting their lives after experiencing limb loss or injury. So make sure you click that follow button so you never miss an episode, and I hope you enjoy.
But if I hadn't have broken it that night, we were unaware that it was strep in the bone. So the likelihood was that I'd probably lose it through my shoulder, or worse than that, we wouldn't catch it and it would have killed me. So Holly Willoughby saved my life.
Wow. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, and welcome to the latest episode of the Dorset Orthopaedic Rise to the Challenge podcast. And today I am delighted to be joined by the one and only Alex Lewis. So for the next delighted. Yeah, I did say
okay. Yeah. It's on camera, I like that.
Exactly. When normally when you're trying to get an appointment or whatever, and it's like, that's because I'm less delighted to see you, but today I'm delighted.
I'll text you in 7 days.
Great, thank you. We were talking about email replies earlier, weren't we? Now some people are pretty tardy, so we won't go into that because mine's probably not the greatest.
No, neither am I.
But anyway, I am delighted to be joined by you today, Alex.
Thank you.
You're a bit of an inspiration, and I'm not going to use that word lightly, within the world that I work in. And so I'm Matt Hughes. Probably should mention that as well. I'm a prosthetist and autist, and also managing director here at Dorset Orthopaedic. And I guess I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a few years now.
I was trying to think, so it would have been through Alex Crick, who recommended.
Started? Was it?
Yeah, I think I was on about skiing. I think that was our first chat when that came down.
That makes sense. I think I've only just given the ski. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I returned those last year.
Oh,
but anyway, so introduce yourself, Alex. So
I'm Alex Lewis. I'm not like Matt. I'm not a podcast host, not yet anyway. I'm a quadruple amputee. So I fell ill back in November 2013. Caught a dose of septicemia, toxic shock syndrome, necrotizing fasciitis, and a few other bits. And then, lost all 4 limbs over the course of about 9 or 10 months, I suppose. And then, then I had to figure out what life was going to hold after that.
So how old were you when?
I was a uber unfit 33, alcoholic, terrible diet, not a very good father, terrible partner to Lucy in hindsight, really. Just not a good guy.
And so I guess then that happens, your world is literally thrown up in the air, and it's kind of, catch it, spin the plate, see what happens.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that process. And you've already mentioned Alex, and we probably need to come on and talk a little bit about her, because apart from everybody else, she's obviously played a huge part in rebuilding you and creating, the physical Alex today, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think we got very lucky when I fell ill. So I met a consultant anaesthetist, not that I can really recall it, but Jeff Watson was the chap who oversaw my care in Winchester. He took a risk at the time. I had less than 1% chance of survival, so I was on the way out. I think they put you on vasopressin, and if you work in the consultant anaesthetist arena, it's basically embalming fluid. So I was definitely slipping away, and then thankfully he saved my life. And then a few more days after that, I was moved to Salisbury, where I met the beautiful Alex Crick.
So how long have you been out in Winchester for?
I think I was about 8 days.
Okay.
In the charge of Winchester, and then they refused to tell me what was going to happen next. All they said was, you'd end up in Salisbury, you're going to go to Salisbury.
Yeah.
And we would ask the question, well, why are we moving? And they just wouldn't tell us.
So at that point, obviously a limb still intact, or just?
They were black.
Yeah.
At that point, or starting to turn black.
Yeah.
My face, one tip of my nose was black, lips were black, ears were black. Left arm was the worst affected at that point. But all I can remember, probably after that point, is arriving in Salisbury, and then before I know what's going on, I'm in theatre losing my left arm. And then obviously both legs above the knee. Alex tried to rebuild my right arm, which was successful for a period of time. Unfortunately, 6 months after the surgery, I broke that arm after an amazing night out involving Holly Willoughby.
Holly Willoughby?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long story, but it's a good one.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah. I hope you've got time. And then I broke my arm, and then we decided that needed to be amputated as well.
So that this period of reconstruction and surgeries and amputation and everything else, what time period are we talking? 2 months, 3 months?
So I fell ill 17th of November, and I moved home from Salisbury the end of May 2014, and then I was back in for surgeries consistently, facial reconstruction. So the surgeries didn't stop until early 2015, I would think.
Wow.
Well, then it slowed down a bit.
Okay. And how old was your son at the time?
So my boy Sam, he was 2 3/4.
Okay. Could he understand what was going on with Daddy and what was happening?
No, he was thankfully he was young enough not to get a handle on it.
Yeah.
He couldn't really understand what was going on. And I'm really glad about that, because I mean, bless him, if he could remember it, all he'd remember is a pint of Guinness in front of him and him strapped to my chest in a papoose. That would have been it. Or a bottle of wine, or a glass of wine. That's all he was looking at. So yeah, I mean, it was a torrid time for him, because he could not compute what was happening.
Yeah.
There was a terrible scenario, Christmas Day 2013, when I hadn't seen him for weeks, and Lucy brought him in, and all I wanted him to do was jump on the bed, give me a cuddle.
Yeah.
I wanted him to just say, "Oh, hi Daddy, yeah, he's going to be all right."
Yeah.
But he wouldn't come close to me. He hid behind Lucy's legs. It was utterly heartbreaking. That's the worst thing I've ever experienced. Forget amputation and everything that comes with it. That rejection. That was the worst thing I've ever experienced. And I think,
but in hindsight, he's a kid, isn't it? He's
absolutely, yeah. He was terrified. I mean, all he saw were lots of machines beeping, me strapped to everything.
Yeah.
And then over time, limbs were being lost, being removed.
So, as you are today, because for those that aren't watching this, that are listening, you said yourself you're a quadrilateral amputee. So we're left above elbow, right below elbow, and then effectively bilateral above knee.
Yeah.
And then you've also had quite a lot of reconstructive surgery to sort of the lips and nose of your face.
They call you a centurion, I think. Plastic surgeons call you a centurion.
Is that
because
you've done
north of 100 hours of surgery?
Wow.
Over a period of time.
Yeah.
Have
you ever totted that up in terms of, definitively how many surgeries you've had? Or?
I don't know the number, about 130 hours maybe.
Wow.
A bit more than that possibly now. All done by Alex Crick, which is phenomenal. That one lady.
Yeah. So Alex is a plastic surgeon based at Salisbury.
Yeah. She was there. She was known as the Ice Queen in the early days, because every time we saw her, it would be like, "Oh no, we're going to amputate your arm. Oh, then we're going to amputate your legs." It was just relentless bad news.
And with so for example, like you talked about your right arm. With the legs, did they go straight above the knee? Did they do it in stages?
No. So the plan was that they would try and keep the knee joint. Alex, before the surgery, felt that there was a possibility of that.
Yeah.
But actually, when the surgery started, the strep was the septicemia was too high up, and it was perilously close to my waist at that point. So the knees had to go to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
I remember waking up post-surgery and 2 nurses dressing my right stump.
You mentioned Alex's knee-high boots.
Yeah. So I remember when I first met her, she came into my room. I'm lying in bed on my own. All my family had gone. My best mate had flown over. He was in another room getting a coffee. And she sort of whops in looking all glamorous in scrubs. And I remember looking at her thinking, wow, you're really hot. And she sort of went around my bed and, we started chatting and it was like, this is quite nice. This is all right. And then she just, the next sentence was, well, tomorrow I'm going to amputate your left arm above the elbow. I think I'll try to save your knee joints.
Yeah.
But it's no guarantee. I think I can rebuild your right arm and we're going to put a plan together to rebuild your face. And then she wafted out the room. And I remember lying there thinking, whatever drugs I'm on must be really good because there's no way somebody would say that to me.
I'd be like, yeah, that's fine.
Whatever. It was just nuts. And then, I freaked out. I think I was sedated that night. I was in my mind, I was so high, I was hatching a plan to escape.
Okay.
And I was hatching it to Chris. Chris wasn't even in the room.
Right.
But we were working together to try and escape this ice maiden that was going to start cutting things off me.
Taking bits.
And then the following day, I woke up, met a trauma psychologist who just put it very simply, if we do not amputate your left arm, the strep will get to your heart, you will die, you'll never see Lucy again, you'll never see your son again. And that was good enough for me.
So we always focus on, and I've been kind of working in the world of prosthetics and orthotics for 20 odd years now, and we always focus on the individual that presents in front of us. And quite often we forget about the family, the partners, the kids, and I guess, without going into too much detail, how did kind of, and maybe I'm asking the wrong person, but how did Lucy kind of cope with that?
Well, luckily for us, because we were in hospitality, we knew thousands of people.
Yeah.
So when everything was unfolding, there were people that could walk the dog. There were people that would make sure that Sam got to preschool in the morning. We had offers of support from people that would make sure the restaurant opened the following morning, that the pub would open. So our lives were being orchestrated by people outside of the unit, really, which meant Lucy had time she would still work. She worked every day while I was in hospital and then came to see me every night. But it was just trying to keep that normality going, really. My mother, on the other hand, would come in after work and just not know what on earth's going on. She could not compute what was happening to her son.
Yeah.
And we touched on it earlier on. I did a podcast with her the other day. But you just don't know the whole story. Even now, 11 years down the line, there's snippets coming to light about how my father coped, about how my mother coped. My stepfather really suffered with it. But Lucy was really stoic, and she is a very strong individual. Yeah. I've always been surrounded by strong women, strong, independent women. That's my thing. Yeah. And Lucy, she epitomises all of that. She's right at the very top. Yeah. She was phenomenal. But
did she ever did she need, you talked about, the clinical psychologist coming into you after you dream and explaining, did she ever kind of access, anything like that to help her?
No, she didn't at that point. I think her way of coping was concentrate on Sam, making sure the businesses are running. Yeah.
And then spend a bit of time with you.
And then come see me, she really struggled with that quick in the early days because she couldn't understand how this woman could be so cold and calculated about what's going to happen. Yeah. And there was no explanation as to why these things were taking place, really, for us to understand.
Because they just had to.
They had to get on, they had to, these surgeries were long. Alex focused a huge amount of time just on me for a long time. And that's when Alex and I got quite close. She would sit in my room for a couple of hours through the night and we'd talk about life before injury, what life might look like post-injury, walking, using arms, prosthetics, wheelchairs, all the kit. She gave me a visual, I think, at that point as to what my life might look like.
And this is not what this is about, but I guess from a context point of view, in terms of, you mentioned at the very beginning, pre all of this happening, you weren't the best version of you.
No, nothing like it.
And so, but were you aware of that at the time?
Yeah, I think I was. I was so drunk. I consumed huge amounts of alcohol. I would have my own barrel of Guinness delivered to the pub, and that was my 90 pints through the week, and then I'd be drinking wine at night. So I was listless, really.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So it's a pretty extreme thing to happen, but it also probably in some ways, whilst it nearly killed you, almost maybe saved you as well.
It did, definitely. Yeah, it did. It was a little bit of divine intervention, I think. I'm not a hugely religious guy, but there was something happening at that point that did come along and make me realise that I had a great partner in Lucy, an amazing young son.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with my life previous.
And there's life beyond a barrel of Guinness.
Absolutely. Yeah. I missed the Guinness, to be fair, but the timing was exceptional. And, in hindsight, if I hadn't have fallen ill, Lucy and I wouldn't be together now.
Yeah.
What would my relationship be like with my son?
Yeah.
Nowhere near as good as it is now.
So we're 11 years on. What's a normal day in Alex's life like?
Nuts, really.
Whatever normal is.
I don't know.
You're not normal.
There's nothing normal about what we do. A normal day for me would be, I get up, there's loads of emails from students working on, prosthetic design, wheelchair design, developing a e-rowing boat in London for me for an event in September. There's meetings with potential rowers to do the North Atlantic in 2026. There's the foundation that I run, so there's all the work around that.
So tell us a little bit about the foundation.
So I realised when I fell ill, loads of people were really supportive, and they do Tough Mudders, they'd fundraise. They knew not a huge amount about the cost of the equipment, but they knew that it was going to be expensive. And obviously I couldn't work for the best part of 2 years, really. So people would fundraise, and this pot of money was created, and it enabled me to access prosthesis that I wouldn't necessarily be able to obtain on the National Health Service.
Yeah.
But when it got to understanding the cost of my prosthetics to give me a full and independent life over in Hangar in the US, the life quote came in at about $3.5–4 million back in 2015. And I think that was to get me from 35 to 60. And we had no money. We barely had a business going. We lost the other business, the pub that I ran, because I ran it into the ground, basically. So the thought of trying to raise that kind of money was just hilarious. And it made me realise that perhaps there was things to be done about that. Yeah. What are the problems? The access to prosthetics. What is available? Why aren't we looking at, material sciences? Why isn't there more in the development of more affordable prosthesis? And I think I had this idea that all these problems were being looked at in universities. But when I, just by chance, met a chap called Sam Wilson who invited me to Imperial, and he was working on a bionics project there. And he said, we can't get end users to take part in these studies. People don't give their time.
Yeah.
I just found that nuts. I thought, why wouldn't you want to give your time to something that may improve your life, 10, 15, 20 years down the line? And that began my love affair, really, with end user-led research.
So the meeting with Sam was how long ago?
I think that was March 2015.
Okay.
I met Sam.
Okay.
And then we've been doing it ever since. We probably worked.
Sam, the chap that I met that kind of was doing the stuff with the vibration, the noise, instead of using electrodes.
Yes. Yeah. So he spun out of Imperial with Surge Technologies.
Yeah. And
still runs that.
Okay.
It's a CFO.
So what is Float? What does Float?
So we have a number of initiatives. So Float is predominantly in and around the research and development of more affordable assisted tech.
Yeah.
So we still support a factory in Ethiopia that when we cycled through the mountains in northern Ethiopia back in 2019, we enhanced the wheelchair facility there. So they make affordable wheelchairs, affordable walking frames. Walking frames are $1.
Yeah.
A wheelchair is $110. It makes everything affordable for that region through NGOs. So we support those guys. We've done some work in the Ukraine with Koala and supplying soft prosthesis. Predominantly day one, so post-surgery, to plug that gap between lying in a hospital bed and receiving your first cast and your first hard-shell prosthetic. We do a lot of the end-user research is all around assisted tech. So the students, we work with probably 11 or 12 different universities at the moment, and the projects can vary from all sorts, from boats to bikes to motorbikes to wheelchairs to attachments.
And you're effectively putting yourself out there as a guinea pig for all those students.
I am a guinea pig, that's right. I love it. I love dreaming something up that isn't being looked at. I mean, we've had this discussion before about hands, and I meet hundreds of students that want to make me a hand. We will build you a hand. This hand's going to be fantastic. It's going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and we're going to build it in 4 months. Yeah. And you say, well, with the best will in the world, that's never going to happen. Yeah. You know, there's lots of hands on the market, and they're all pretty good, and you know the cost is prohibitive predominantly, but you know they're out there. Why don't you design me a really cool wrist unit or an elbow joint? But they're like, that's not cool. So we need to go in there and say, well, you need to look at the socket, you need to look at the elbow joint, the wrist unit. You know, why isn't there a post-amputation below knee prosthetic that you can use in the interim period to get you up and mobile, this enhanced pathway of rehab to get you out of hospital, to release that bed and to get you home quicker. And I think that probably harks back all the way to Sam. I wanted to be home. More than anything else in the world, I wanted to be with that boy and with Lucy. And I was stuck in a system that was going to struggle with me to be able to give me the right equipment.
Because of your levels of...
Because of the level of amputation.
So we're jumping around a little bit here, but so on that day of discharge from Salisbury, did you go home or did you go somewhere else?
No, discharge was home. So Alex recommended that I took a bit of R&R back home before I went to rehab in Roehampton. And I had more surgeries in that interim period, so I didn't go to rehab until October 2014. So I had a few months at home, but obviously in that time I broke my right arm, so that had to be amputated as well.
So at that point you still had your right hand?
Yeah, that was nerve growth was really close to the thumb. And that was key to independent living at that point. Protect it. Whatever you do, protect it. Don't go to London and then the following evening break it, which is unfortunately what I did.
How did you break it?
Well, shall I go into the story?
Yeah,
I'll make it a bit quicker, but basically I had a Labrador at that point called Holly Willoughby Lewis. Huge Holly Willoughby fan. It was on her pet passport. And then we got a call from this morning and they said, oh, we want you to come on the show. And I thought, you know, that'd be great. I get to meet Holly Willoughby. And I said, look, we'll do it, but I want my best mate to come with me because I want to thank him on camera for what he gave up. He gave up his life for 6 months to look after me, basically. Yeah. So I had a great opportunity. He and I went up together. We met Holly Willoughby. She was amazing. And Philip Schofield, he wasn't all that. And then at the end of the show, they said, look, we know you're huge fans of Japanese food, so we've got your table at Nobu 7:30 this evening. Yeah. So whatever you do, you do what you want in London today, but make sure you're at Nobu at 7:30. So Chris and I sort of wander out the studio, and it's about 11:15, and they say, look, leave your car here, we'll give you a taxi for the day, do whatever you want. Yeah. Well, we went straight to Soho, to the Charlotte Street Hotel, drank some champagne on the house because they just watched the show. And then we went for a long lunch at Pollen Street Social, which lasted about 6 hours. At a cost I can't even recall. It was a lot. Yeah. And then by the time we finished the lunch, it was like 7:15. So we went straight to Nobu. Yeah. Holly Willoughby recommended that I drink these certain cocktails. Yeah. So we got stuck into them. And before I know it, it's nearly 11:15 at night. And at no point through that day had I told Lucy what we were doing. She had no idea where we were. So I made Chris go and call her. At that point, he could barely speak. Right. So Lucy dispatches two taxi drivers in one taxi. One driver to take our car home and the other guy to get us home. Yeah. Well, I knew both taxi drivers. And as we went through Stockbridge High Street about 2 o'clock the following morning, the Greyhound was still open. the restaurant that we have. So we darted in there for another bottle of champagne. So we get home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and Chris fell out the back of the taxi. The taxi driver got me into the wheelchair and got me into the house. And I remember Lucy standing in the doorway, and I just could feel the wrath in her eyes. And I went to bed that night, and every night,
probably well deserved.
well, that's questionable. But every night I would take off the wrist brace that I was using to protect my right arm. I'd put it on the bedside table, go to sleep. So I go to sleep that night. My arm was absolutely fine. The following morning I wake up, and as I tried to push myself out of bed, I couldn't do it. So I started to roll onto my left side, my shorter arm, and sort of shuffled up. And I looked at my right arm, I picked it up, and my hand was down by my elbow. I couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
I had no feeling in it. Rushed back into Salisbury. I met with Alex. You can imagine her face.
Yeah.
I explained what I'd done the day before.
She was dead chuffed about it.
The assumption was, you were drunk, you've broken it, you idiot. But I remember one of the team looking at it, and at that point they were taking lots of swabs and tests, and they put it in a cast. And one of the team started to see tears in her eyes, and she walked out. So I knew at that point the likelihood of me keeping my hand was minimal.
Yeah.
I had to wait until the end of the day. So Chris and I are waiting in Salisbury until 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock Alex comes back in, and she sits there in front of me. And the ice queen that I knew a few months earlier was sat crying her eyes out on the floor, saying that we could try and pin it, put rods in it, but there's no guarantee it'll work. You could spend the next 18 months of your life looking at something that may never be of any benefit, or we could amputate. So I immediately said, let's amputate, let's get it off. I knew there was a way of me using a below elbow prosthetic.
Yeah.
She said, you can't make that call on your own, go home, speak to Lucy. So I did.
Yeah.
3 days later I'm in surgery, and they amputate my right arm. But when he came out of surgery, Alex comes back in my room and she's grinning like a Cheshire cat. And I said, Alex, you shouldn't really be that happy having just amputated my last remaining limb.
Yeah.
And she said, no, we've discovered what the problem was. You didn't break it when you were drunk in London. Strep had got into your bone, and it was so weakened that the likelihood is you could have rolled over in the night and you would have broken it.
Right.
But if I hadn't have broken it that night, we were unaware that it was strep in the bone. So the likelihood was that I'd probably lose it through my shoulder. Or worse than that, we wouldn't catch it and it would have killed me.
Yeah.
So Holly Willoughby saved my life.
Wow. There you go.
That's it. Thank you, Holly Willoughby.
It there, really, shouldn't we? So for those for our listeners, I guess, you sit in front of me today in a manual wheelchair with a below elbow body powered prosthesis on your right side,
Yeah.
and then nothing on your left side, and that's Alex Lewis.
Yeah, it's how it's been for a decade.
Yeah.
Really.
So explain a little bit about your mobility and how you live.
So really early on, the OT in Salisbury said to me, you won't be able to use a manual wheelchair. You're going to need a powered chair.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't want that, because Alex has worked tirelessly to give me the body that I've got left.
Yeah.
I want to be able to use it. And I was fully aware that I needed to keep fit to a point to be as mobile as possible. And I thought me just sitting in a chair, moving a stick around, is going to make me lazy. And I've been lazy. So I knew I had tendencies. So I said, I don't want that. I'm going to figure it out and use my right prosthetic to power a wheelchair. And that's exactly what we did. So we figured out that we need to put some corrugated rubber on the underside of the socket, which is now a mountain bike tyre. And I knew I wanted a cool chair. I didn't want to be in a old, horrible looking NHS chair. And I went straight to EPC, bought a bright yellow wheelchair, and then learned to propel.
And that takes you everywhere that you need to go.
Yeah. It's a great workout. Yeah. Physically, it's demanding.
Yeah.
But
I guess you also need, long term, you need to look after that arm.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it works great now. I'm 45. Realistically, some of the stuff that we're going to do in the next 5 years, what is that arm going to be like in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
So I know I need to make the most of my condition now, because I've got an idea of what's coming down the line, and it's going to be a lot of change.
And you do some pretty kind of out there things, and actually, from the conversations that we've had, they're only going to get slightly crazier and slightly more out there.
Yeah.
Are you aware of? Do you think about kind of? Is it mainly right? We just need to do this now because actually in 10 years' time I'm not going to be able to do it. But do you think about the consequences, or is that just not? Doesn't really matter because it's not going to change anything?
No, unfortunately, that isn't going to change my mind. The more risk, the more reward in my eyes. The whole rise to the challenge thing, I guess, the first opportunity I had to do that was skydiving in 2015. I'd never done it with legs and arms. I just felt at that point I just lost my right arm. It's like, you know what? Life is short. Let's just crack on. Anything that's suggested, we'll just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And if we don't like it, we don't do it again.
Yeah.
So skydiving came along, we did it, loved it. And that led to kayaking around Greenland, southern tip of Greenland. And that led to kayaking along the Orange River in Namibia. And then beyond that, we went to Ethiopia and cycled through the Simien Mountains and then climbed the highest mountain, Ras Dashen. And then that led to crossing the Namib Desert on a mobility scooter, which was terrible.
That wasn't the original challenge.
No, the plan was this really super duper off-road, four-wheeled, solar-assisted, battery-powered hand cycle from the University of Southampton.
Yeah. So
they made this really cool bike, but we shipped it in April 2022, and it arrived the wrong side of Africa in Durban at the end of August 2022. But we were scheduled to do our trip in July 2022. So the mobility scooter was a last minute, literally the day before we fly out, we'll take that and we'll sit on that and give it a go.
That was an attachment onto your wheelchair.
Yeah, tri-ride attachment, yeah. Which was built for the streets of Italy and London.
Yeah. It
should have been seen in Milan, not in the Namib. But it fared really well.
But it worked.
Kind of. And then after that, we took the Namib hand cycle around Salisbury Plain. We tried to do a 24-hour non-stop. I think we were trying to do 300 kilometres in that time. And we did 220 in 19 hours in the end before the bike broke. So it had its run.
Yeah.
The students got to see it perform as well as it could do in the driving rain in Salisbury. Yeah. Not quite the Namib. And then it was the water. I think in my mind, I wanted to do the desert, the mountain, snow and ice, sea and air, to somehow enable me to do something in those elements.
What drives you to do all of this?
There's something about being me. I don't want to win a medal.
No.
I'm not in it it's not a race. It's just doing something totally outlandish to prove to other people with disability that, do you know what? Anything's possible.
You can do it.
You can do it.
If you put your mind.
Yeah. Some things, we talked about little wins earlier. When I came home from hospital, I had Chris Bagley by my side, so he would angle grind the outer prongs of a fork off.
Yeah.
So I could then learn to slide it into a strap to enable me to eat independently.
Yeah.
Because my mouth opening was the size of a 5p coin. That first mouthful of food that I put in my mouth with that fork was life-changing.
Yeah.
Because up until then I couldn't see a way of doing it. And he gave me options, and I needed him to be an OT, engineer, best mate, godfather to my son. He was just phenomenal. And they're both equally important, whether it's going to climb a mountain or enable you to eat or drink independently.
Yeah, I think that's we always talk about patients' journeys and bits and pieces, and I think that people always kind of focus on the crazy and the wacky things that people can do, and you need people to go out there and do that, because people need to understand that actually you can have had all your limbs, amputated, and you can still go out there and do these amazing things.
Absolutely.
But also, it's normal life as well, isn't it? That's as important, if not as important. And sometimes we forget that, being able to do the everyday, the activities that you would do, to be able to pick your kids up, to go to work, to do the shopping, all that kind of stuff, all mundane, boring stuff, but amazing. And actually, that
it's
to
huge,
be able to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, you try and return the patient to as near normal life as possible. Luckily for me, I didn't have a career.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go back into being a bad landlord. That was over and done with. So I literally had an amazing blank sheet of paper to do whatever I wanted to do. But early on, Lucy said, look, you've got 2 years to sort this out. Do what you like, but there needs to be a job of some description down the line. And luckily for me, we started public speaking.
Yeah.
I set up an interior design company for a few years, which was great. But I just had that thirst for
adventure.
Yeah.
So, last summer, you did a fairly unique challenge. Tell us a little bit about the Pig to Pig and what that was all about. And
the Pig to Pig was born in lockdown when I was sat in the garden drinking rosé, homeschooling my son, and I thought it'd be great to do something in the UK. All our trips to that point were abroad. I hadn't really done anything really sizable in the UK, and I knew at that point that I had a kind of yearning to cross the Atlantic in a rowing boat. I had no idea how I was going to do it.
Yeah. But
that's what I wanted to do. And I talked to Lucy about it, and she just laughed it off, going, yeah, whatever. But the Pig to Pig was born so it could enable me to offshore row. So we took an old beaten up Flying 15 sailboat, turned it into a rowing boat. We got the pig hotels on board for nutrition and hydration necessary in any adventure. We started in Harlem Bay. I cycled to Falmouth, and then I spent the next 13 days in a rowing boat, going from Falmouth to Dover. So we did about 350 miles, I think. And then we cycled all the way back from Canterbury to Harlem Bay.
So tell us about the rowing boat, because that's like you just kind of explained it as though you just did it and it's covered, but there's more to it than that, isn't
it? It was, it took years to come to fruition. The rowing boat was a theory by a guy crazier than me who had a rowing boat, ocean rowing boat company. Oh. So we knew the boat was sound and could work in theory. What we didn't know is how I would attach to an oar.
Yeah.
What would I sit on?
Yeah.
Would I need prosthetic legs? What would I need from an arm perspective?
Yeah.
Could I use two oars? Was it single oar? But more importantly is what happened if I fell in the water? How would I detach from the oar if we got into trouble? And the University of Bath were fantastic, and Nikki and the students there, they created these quick release attachments. Obviously you guys did some great sockets for me. We had to problem solve in terms of how easy it was for me to put my left socket on to attach to the oar, which was old school's best.
But your left socket, we didn't even end up with an elbow in the end, did we?
No, it was two.
So you attached, so effectively your below elbow, you had a quick release attachment onto the oar. And then on the left side, it was effectively a piece of string.
It was a piece of string, yeah.
String's probably wrong.
Well,
nautical rope.
A straggly old bit of nautical rope. Yeah, and that was the system. And we cut an old wheelchair of mine in half, bolted it to the boat, sat me on it, ratchet strapped me in, and off we went.
And you had varying people join you.
We had an amazing. We put a call out in, I think, in between Christmas and New Year, 2023, and one of those things where you think nobody's going to reply to it. The whole premise of this expedition is nuts. Why would you want to get in a boat with me, basically? And we had 21 people apply in about 24 hours. Some that rowed the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. They'd done all sorts of crazy stuff. So they were all like-minded. And we came away with 20 amazing rowers that took part in the event.
Probably unfair, but was there a favourite that shared the boat with you?
There was actually. So Robin Knox Johnson jumped in the boat when we were crossing from I can't remember, Southampton to the Isle of Wight. I can't remember where we were. And bear in mind, he's 86. So this legend of the sailing community arrived on a rib.
From Swanage.
Was it Swanage? I can't remember.
Doesn't matter.
He just looked like an 86-year-old James Bond on this rib boat.
Wow.
And he leapt in at the back of my boat and just started rowing. And we were chatting away, and he spent 2 hours in there. And when we got into Yarmouth Harbour, he leapt out the boat, lights a cigarette. And I said, thanks for that, Robin. That was really kind of you. How'd you find it? He went, I can hate rowing. I said, why'd you get in the boat? He said, wow, something to do, an opportunity.
Yeah.
And he was great, and we chatted for a few hours after that. So we had amazing support.
I think one of my favourite images watching kind of you following the social media story of you doing it was there was a picture of you in the boat on one day, and there was some days where it was baking, it was flat as a pancake.
Yeah.
You had some lumpy sea as well, didn't you?
We did have some gnarly days, yeah.
And you couldn't see the boat, or you could see it was just your head above a wave.
Yeah.
And I just thought that just says it all.
I mean, that was day 2, and bearing in mind when I got in that boat in Falmouth Harbour to start the rowing event, I trained for about 6 hours on a river. I had no offshore rowing experience whatsoever. We hadn't really tested the quick release attachments.
You hadn't really tested
We hadn't really tested anything. No, the sockets arrived the day before it. So everything was like, this is
Alex Crick's discuss.
I'll tell you, yeah, sorry, Alex. Yeah, we just, day one, it's like we're winging it, see what happens. And it worked.
Yeah. So you get to Dover, then you jump on the hand bike and you do that little thing of cycling how many miles back to Cornwall?
I think we did 649 back to Cornwall over the next 11 or 12 days.
Stopping en route to talk and...
we stopped at schools and universities that we work with, and charities and harbours and, yacht clubs. Just talking about the work we do, why we're doing it, our plans for the future. All these events have been lined up, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger year on year. So we've got an event in September, the E-Row. So the boat that I took across the south coast is now an e-rowing boat with a seat mechanism that drives an e-power battery system behind me that will power 2 pedal props either side of the boat. And we intend to do 36 hours non-stop on the Thames to try and achieve 140 nautical miles. The year after that, we do the North Atlantic, which will be 3,000 miles from Newfoundland to Lymington. And then the year after that, we're looking at skiing across Greenland. And the year after that, we're going to top it all off with paramotoring from Swakopmund in Namibia to Beira in Mozambique.
So that's 27, 28.
28, I think. 28. And then, the more I think about it, and I think about it a lot now, there has to be something global.
As in around the globe?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
I don't think I'd be able to stop after Africa to row an ocean, fly across a continent. You'd think global would have to follow that.
Phileas Fogg.
Yeah, I used to love those snacks. Those snacks.
Yeah, I used to like them.
They were good.
All good bars.
Yeah.
There's people looking at us in this room that have got no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, back in the early 90s.
Yeah, good bar snacks. So that is, I guess the future is even more barking than what you've done today. Yeah,
but
what drives you?
Every event we do, we want to come out with something that is of benefit for others.
Yeah.
So the quick release attachments, so anybody with a upper limb amputation can now attach to an oar of some description, knowing they can get out on their own release. Yeah. I think for the North Atlantic, we're looking at a way of developing, basically, in this rowing boat, if I get into any kind of trouble medically.
The North Atlantic's a little bit different than the English Channel, isn't it?
Yeah, the North is bitterly cold, frozen fog, icebergs, more wildlife, rolling seas like hills in Dartmoor.
But so that would be a different boat.
Yeah, so that'll be an ocean-going rowing boat, and I think we're going to do a 12-person boat because that's never ever.
12-person.
Yeah.
How many would be rowing at any one time?
6.
Okay.
But it's never been done before. Never ever. Never attempted by anybody.
Wow.
So we would be not only the first quad amp to do it.
Other amputees or?
Possibly. That option is there now. We've got, I think, 8 places on the boat, so we can now cherry pick. And to have multiple members of the crew with some form of disability would be very difficult.
Yeah.
But we like difficult.
Yeah. Difficult's good.
But I was chatting to the guy the other day, and he said, I said, do I need a support boat for this boat? Bear in mind they're 120 grand. And he went, well, you could do, but when you're in the North Atlantic, if you get in trouble, you just do an SOS, and the nearest boat will come and pick you up if you're in trouble. Yeah, and the chances are you'll have a medical bay. Oh, that's great. So how do I get into that boat when it arrives? Yeah. If it's a cargo ship? And he said, well, there's every chance you'd probably die trying to get up it. He just laid it out like that, and I said, right, Charlie. I said, is there a university project in there that we could develop something that could be on the boat that I could get into that would
reduce the chances of you dying?
Yeah, and he said it's a really good idea, so we're going to look at that.
Okay. So the safe evacuation of a quadrilateral amputee from a rowing boat into a seagoing vessel.
Yeah, it would make for great footage if I did get in trouble. Yeah, very niche. But then how many disabled people are sailors? What happens if they got into trouble?
Yeah.
So you look at that, it's not just for amputees, this is for, and it is niche, but I guarantee out of that event will come 4 or 5 other ideas that will be fed into that ecosystem of the universities. So every event we do, we come away with, why don't we try and design that? Because these things just aren't on the market.
No, they are not.
Why is that?
You know why it's not.
Yeah, but that's what Float's all about.
But that's why you need kind of events like this to create those solutions.
Yeah.
Because there's always a solution. I always tell patients there's always a solution.
Absolutely.
There's always a solution. Don't know how you're going to get there.
But I think rooting in education with these students, they're working on something, it's a real world, bizarre problem to fix. So we took a student to Ethiopia, we took a student to Namibia with us. And we had students on the event back in June, big to big.
Which is life changing for them as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
in terms of an experience and to a degree, I guess it's giving them that kind of real life experience of what they're doing and how that is impacting and how it has the potential to change people's lives.
I mean, what we want is to stumble across some of these solutions to these problems and spin them out of uni, set them up in their own company, give them a chance at working for themselves, not going into big corporate, and just doing something really, really cool for people that just 9 times out of 10 don't have the solutions.
Yeah.
There's space in that boat. I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking.
That's what I was thinking.
65 to 70 days of Alex.
Yeah.
It'd drive you nuts, wouldn't it?
It'd be pretty awesome.
It'd be wicked, wouldn't it? Should we do it?
I'm not going to commit on a podcast, but I am thinking of it.
Oh, I nearly got you. Come on, just commit.
Because like you said, it's not just about me, is it? Because if it was just about me, I'd say yes straight away. But yeah.
Okay, your name's down.
On that note, I'd like to finish just kind of sort of, we've talked about you and as I said at the very beginning, the inspiring story of Alex Lewis today, it continues to sound like that story will continue to inspire. What does your boy think of Dad now?
He's just grown up with Dad now.
Yeah.
So it's normal. If I come home with a bionic hand and a motorbike, it's like, oh, Dad's back. There's all sorts of weird stuff coming in and out of the house, and he's kind of used to it now. But I think, 2027, 2028, he could be part of those adventures.
Yeah. Do you want him to be?
Yeah.
Do you think he wants to be?
I think he would.
Yeah. Because I guess that, like you touched on it, the Pig to Pig was the first time he probably got to see you doing stuff in the UK, because previously it had been overseas. And
absolutely,
a bit on the younger side anyway.
And he saw when my leg turned completely purple through the strapping, he saw the sores and the bruisings and everything that comes with it as part of it. But I just keep saying to him, the pain and the heartache and the problems are all part of it. It just makes it for a richer experience at the end.
Well, let's end it there. It's a privilege, like in the short time I've known you, it's a privilege to kind of do the few bits that we've been doing and look forward to
thank you.
Exploring what we do in the future as well with you. I think to finish, there's a little bit of a quiz.
I know, I'm dreading this.
Apparently, there are some questions on the table there. I don't know what format this takes. I'm guessing it's five questions. I ask you 5 questions.
Oh yeah, good, yeah.
And these are random. These aren't questions about Alex Lewis or Matt Hughes, so that's a good thing, definitely. Who wants to start? Do you want to start?
I can start, yeah. Okay, so question 1. What percentage of London tube stations are accessibility friendly? 60%?
Or you give me options.
33% or 10%?
It's not going to be 60%. I'd like to think it was the middle one, but is it going to be 10%? I'm going to go 10%.
The middle one.
Was it?
33. Which is way more, to be fair. That's way more than I thought.
What we should have said is that we are playing for quite an amazing trophy.
Oh, yeah.
For those that may see us on camera, I mean, that's pretty special, right? So, yeah.
That's the sort of trophy that could make it into someone's house, and your other half would never know about it.
You went after a medal, but I mean, now that you know you're playing for that,
yeah, only because I might put a shot or something to celebrate when we get home.
Okay, so question number 1, Alex: where was the first Paralympics held?
Oh God!
You don't get any. It was in 1960. I'll give you a clue.
Yeah, was it? US.
It was in Rome, in Italy.
Was it?
Yeah. Is that 0-0?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll get this.
Good.
Who was named the first blind contestant to be crowned 2024's winner of Strictly Come Dancing?
It's Chris McCausland.
Correct.
Ding. 1-0.
Okay, yeah, don't have to. We knew that. You didn't have to say that.
Which TV presenter recently appeared on The Masked Singer as Bigfoot with a broken leg?
This is popular culture. This just isn't me.
Yeah. I'd give you a clue, but I'm not going to because I want to win.
Yeah, that's the bare fact, ladies and gentlemen. There he is, right there. Look. The truth is coming out.
If it starts getting embarrassing towards the end, I'll give you some clues.
It's getting there now.
You're obviously not
I haven't got. Honestly,
a viewer of The Masked Singer.
I haven't got a clue.
Alex Brooker.
Oh.
So, how many gold medals did the UK win in the 2024 Paralympics in Paris? Your options are 39, 22, or 49.
Oh. 22.
You went for the middle. It's always the middle option, didn't you? It's 49.
That's bad, isn't it? Oh my God. Oh. These questions are so loaded towards you. Have you noticed this?
Really?
Yeah,
You think?
Yeah. Not that I'm competitive. 3 gold medals were won in Paris by Dorset Ortho supported athletes.
Yeah, that is loaded to Orthopaedic.
Yeah, do you think so?
That's awful. If I get it wrong now, that's
that'd be amazing. Can you name them?
3 gold medalists.
Yeah.
Jacco van Gas, Finn Graham, and I should be able to just reel that off. And I'm thinking my answer is that Jacco van Gas won 2 golds.
For those of you listening at home, that wasn't the first answer that he gave us, and we have to take the first answer, which was wrong.
This is true. So what are the categories?
So Jacco won Open C15 750 team sprint, and the men's C3 3000 metre individual pursuit, and then Finn won men's C13 road race.
I knew that was it.
I cannot believe you didn't know that. Your patience.
I think I did quite well.
Part of the fabric.
Have
they got their pictures on the wall?
In different clinics, yeah.
And you still didn't get it?
So to be fair, I'll give kudos here to Ian Tolbert up in Manchester, because he was our gold-winning prosthetist. Obviously, it's all about the athlete, but it was Ian that did
part of the team
for those patients. Okay, so where are we at? Are we question number 3? Question number 4?
You definitely got the last one wrong. That's where I'm at.
But I'm still winning 1-0.
Just.
Right. Question number 4. Which actor, I wouldn't have a clue, played 3 different characters throughout the Harry Potter franchise? I've never seen a Harry Potter film.
Neither have I.
You're joking.
2 of us.
I thought everyone would know that.
No. No clue. Robbie Coltrane.
Warwick Davis.
Sorry.
I know. How tall is Warwick Davis? Is he taller than me? I'm 3'10 and a half.
Don't know. Well, we'll Google it afterwards.
Just for future acting roles. Oh God.
He's 3'6".
Oh, so I knew this one as well.
Did you?
Yeah. Which famous actor played the role of Quiggled in Star Wars Episode? Is that what?
Scott Richardson. One and only.
Yeah, the only.
Yeah. He's another legendary amputee. I have to spend too much of my working life with him, so I know all about that. These are definitely.
They were so yeah. That was so one-sided. That was terrible.
Is that 2-0?
Yeah, yeah. That was
unassailable.
A whitewash, and that was terrible.
How do you know that? You shouldn't really know that, because he's not that famous.
Oh, he is. Bear in mind, I was up at the clinic at that point when he was doing it. How's the speed golf going for him?
Yeah, I think. Didn't he do a charity day as well for Alex Lewis Trust?
He did, yeah. That was the last golf course I ever played golf at.
Was it?
Yeah, I didn't even realise till I got there. I did a golf day there just before I fell ill. He's a good chap.
He's a good guy.
Good actor.
Yeah.
There were a lot of prosthetics in that too, weren't there?
It was his old water leg, apparently.
Was it?
Yeah.
Does he still go to the shows where he...
Yeah, he does all the Comic-Cons. We have to listen to that. Whatever.
Well, he sounds like a really good podcast guest. Shouldn't we get him on?
Probably. He'd be a better presenter than me, probably. Your final question.
Oh, is it worth it? Right,
it's unassailable.
Yeah.
Because I think it's 2-0, so we will be taking the what colour was the blue badge between the years 1970 and 2000? There's a clue here. It wasn't blue.
Black?
It was orange.
Was it?
Yeah. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, obviously. I didn't know any of them. That's so embarrassing.
Congratulations to me. Thank you. Cheers, Alex. That was really, it was a very easy and pleasant way to
It was very good
process.
until the last 20 minutes or so. That was a bit rubbish.
But yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you for your support. Here's to many more. You can have a little drink and celebrate all the things that you're going to do in the future in a rowing boat.
In a rowing boat. I fancy the skiing a bit more.
Yeah, that's 888 miles, I think.
Yeah.
35 days.
Cross country.
Yeah,
Sitting down or standing up?
standing up.
There's a bit of work to do there, then, isn't there?
Yeah,
Onwards and upwards. Look forward to it. Cheers, Alex.
thank you.